Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Answer Questions. This week, as always, I'm here with my parents, Mom and Dad.
Hello.
Hello.
And joining us again, we have my sister, Felicity.
Hello.
So this week, we thought we'd try something a little bit different, and we'll have my parents asking my sister and myself questions. So I'll let them go ahead and ask the first question. And you may notice this week, we actually have intro music, courtesy of a friend, Gideon Rowe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gideon. All right, sorry to cut you off, Mom. What's the first question?
So it's kind of a loaded question, and I debated asking it because it may hurt. But what do you wish we would have done differently while we were raising you?
Good question. Sis, do you want to go first?
I'm not entirely sure I want to answer that question. I really wish you had not put me on so many fucking diets.
Sorry about that.
So I guess for me, one thing would have been to encourage a little bit more like physical activity when we were growing up. I know you guys were busy, with jobs and everything. And we did do I remember clearly in Idaho, we'd go out and do bike rides together as a family. And that was fun. But other than that, there wasn't a huge push for hey, play sports or, workout or a bunch of stuff. It just wasn't a huge part of growing up. I kind of wish it was more of a part.
No, I wish we would have done that more for you guys as well. But it's better to start out in a healthy lifestyle and keep that than it is to pick it up later in life, and it seems to be harder to get that habit going. And you do have to remember, we were very young and we were just doing the best we could with what we knew. And we both had come up from farm families. And so for us, working was just what we did. And we didn't, per se go to the gym or go running or whatever growing up. That wasn't something we did. So it was something I had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Which I learned later when you were a senior, junior and senior in high school.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was a generational thing too, because when we were growing up, you were always active. Mm-hmm. There was no PlayStation, or any of that. That kind of lifestyle, that sit on the couch and play video games hours on end, wasn't part of our lifestyle. Hell, Atari didn't come out until the early 80s. Yes, I said Atari. So we got kicked outside. It was active. Yeah, and so when we kicked you guys and said, go outside and play, that's what we kind of felt like you were doing. We didn't realize that you guys would sit on the porch and do nothing.
Yeah, I think the thing that also played into that was that we moved around so much when we were younger, that we didn't really get a chance to make those super close, friendships, and just have somebody else that we could just go play and hang out with when we were growing up, which might have been different from you guys. Because I remember you guys were go outside and play, and it'd be me, Ben, and Sis, on the front yard, throwing sticks or rocks at each other. And we're all right, so this was cool for 30 minutes until the side of Ben's head got cut open.
Okay, in my defense, he pissed me off and then threw a rock at me, and I had a baseball bat.
What were you going to say, Sis, on the flip side?
On the flip side, we are very excellent at quickly making friends and attaching ourselves to a situation.
Yeah, you guys did learn how to assess situations and assess, well, some of you learned how to assess people better than others, but You know, you learned how to fit in and not get beat up
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Okay. What skills would you have liked me to have taught you while you were growing up that perhaps you've learned since leaving the house?
One thing that I wish I had always learned and that I kind of tried to learn a little bit ago was how to drive stick.
Yes.
I wish that was something that I knew how to do now, because I know we had that Saab growing up that was stick shift, and that was always fun to ride around in, especially with you driving, Dad. We hit. I remember we hit quite a high speed. I won't say if it was above the speed limit or not. Going up the hill and flying over the top.
But
Always
driving
fun.
around Lake Quartermaine.
Yeah, I also remember Mom having a bit of fun sometimes with the stick shift, and that was a good time in the car. But that was just when we got up to driving age. I don't think we had that car anymore,
No.
and so yeah, from that point it was just an automatic. But going back, there's been a couple cars I've looked at since I'd been in the market recently to buy a car, where I was like, oh, that looks like a really good car. It's a good deal on it, and then I look, I'm like, fuck, I don't know how to drive stick shift.
Well, you do. You just got to trust yourself more.
Yeah,
It's a
and
skill worth learning because if you can drive a stick, you can drive anything.
right.
So and over here in the States, finding a car that's a stick shift isn't easy anymore. In Europe, it is very easy because they like to drive. I mean, like they're drivers, and driving a stick is for drivers. Where here, it's everybody's so distracted with everything else that is something they don't want to do. It's that one extra thing. They just want everything to be automatic and easy.
Well, Sis, do you have any skills that you wish Mom and Dad had taught us?
I am trying to think. They were a lot more thorough on the basic shit we needed, like how to open a bank account, how to actually write checks, apply for jobs, like all that before we even graduated high school.
And I know Mom and Dad, you guys both did a really good job in teaching us like basic handyman skills.
Right.
Just 'cause we were renovating so many houses growing up that like I can hang sheetrock, redo wiring, and,
Now you can.
Now
Don't
you
you pull
can.
yourself up.
yeah. Throwback to last week's episode.
I still can't go to a Home Depot by myself. I get struck with the urge to do something, like buy a house and redo it. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Do you think I should have taught you more
How to car maintenance.
car maintenance, more self-defense, more,
Yeah, yes to both of those. Because I know I guess it was more Ben was, I guess, middle teenager, 15, 16 when we were doing kind of a lot of car maintenance. I remember.
right.
Um, and then after he left, like I would help out. I'd still help out a little bit, but we had bought better cars since then. We didn't have to do like a bunch of, I guess, whole
Well,
a lot of maintenance.
we did the brake caliper job.
Yeah. And I guess with that, like I had always been like the the secondhand man in that. I wish you would let me take a little bit more of like a leading position. Like as I got older, would be like, hey, like we need to change the brake calibers, and instead of me being the one like sitting in the car pushing the brake to like bleed them dry or bleed the brake
Right.
system thing, like actually be like, all right, you need to go here, figure it out. I'll push the brake whenever you tell me to.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. You changed the caliper, but I bled the brakes.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. And I would say there was a lot of instances kind of like doing those like around the house, like handyman jobs where you'd be like, oh, hey, we need to do this job. And then I'd always kind of be like, number 2 guy sitting there like, how can I help, Dad? Instead of you just being like, hey, like, you tell me, like, you have the skills, you tell me what to do, kind of thing.
Right. And that's
I think that would have helped with confidence.
that's fair enough.
Yeah. As far as self-defense, yes, I would have liked to learn more. That's something I've found that I really enjoy. Doing it like during college, I took a little bit of Krav Maga class, and that was something that kind of got me back into like, oh hey, like I need to actually like work out again and do something instead of like going to class, coming back, and doing nothing.
Right.
Well, we did try to make sure you had the basics, the foundations of how to clean, how to do your laundry, how to do basic cooking, how to manage your money, how to understand how to pay bills.
How to get your own car insurance.
Yeah, get your car insurance, pay your phone bill.
Like, you can't believe how many people I've had to explain stuff to that I thought was completely normal for people to understand, and I'm like, oh, well, shit.
Sis, what skills, I guess, did you have to learn outside of home? Like I know you moved recently, like out on your own. So what have you learned out there on your own without the immediate help of mom and dad?
I would have really liked to have learned a bit more on how to actually negotiate with people and not just be like, oh, hey, this is a set price. Why are you trying to change it? Instead, you have to actually sit down and be like, no,
Barter.
no,
Yeah.
no. It's like, it would have been nice to learn how to negotiate instead of just going, well, that sounds fair. Is that fair? Do I need to text mom and dad? No, it sounds right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Felicity, I wouldn't want to negotiate with you. You told us different things you've negotiated on, like your car and different. So I'm like, not going up against that one.
Stubborn as a mule. Growing up, if there was ever an argument and there turned into like a staring match in there, always lost. Could never win. Sis would always win. She'd be like, I'm not doing that. You're gonna have to do it. And I fully believe she would turn into a skeleton just standing there, and it would not get done if I didn't do it.
Probably.
I get that from dad. If I don't want to do something, I won't fucking do it. Just gonna stand there. I will die like that.
So let me ask you guys this. So with the peers and your friends now, what do you see that you think is just normal, everybody should know this, that they don't know, that their parents never taught them? What are like some glaring deficiencies that you're like, what? You don't know that?
You should always have a personal checkbook. You cannot rely on cashier check.
I was talking to someone recently. They were 25, and they're like, we had to make a medical appointment, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, this is the first time I've had to make a medical appointment on my own. I was like, dude, you're 25. You're getting close to 30, man.
Yeah, it's time for mommy to pull the pacifier out of that one's mouth.
Yeah, I guess just basic car maintenance, basic handyman stuff, kind of around the house. Like, oh, you got a leaky faucet or something, you should be able to fix that. Or if the wiring's kind of bad, you should be able to change the wiring on something, like not redo the whole wiring to the house, but if you got a light switch that's on the fritz, then
how to properly caulk a bathtub.
Yeah, I still run into that.
Do you think that we adequately prepared you to be independent and living the life you are?
I think your whole goal was to get us independent, so yes. In that sense,
there may be a few social graces lacking, because I honestly don't think anybody in our family has tact half the time. Half of us are too
Okay.
young to care, the other half just have reached the point in their lives they don't give a fuck.
I tried desperately for that. All three of you are stubborn SOBs. And we're like, I don't think so. But that also goes back to we moved a lot. So
Yeah.
social norms in different parts of the country and different parts of the world are different. And so what was a social norm in the Northwest was not a social norm in the East Coast where we were. There, it would just not necessarily the same.
I don't notice if Josh knows if he does this, but I find myself ranging from horribly, like, completely informal to straight up, like, Felicity Faye, how may I help you? Completely professional formal. Like, there is no in between.
No, I'm pretty chill most of the time. I don't know. I think college helped me a lot with social skills. I know. I guess middle school through kind of high school, I was a lot more awkward around different people, and that was painfully apparent if you talk with my partner right now. Talk about our first interaction that we had. Painfully awkward on her end. Um, but so yeah, I think college helped with my social skills a little bit. I think probably something else that could have been done, or how to phrase this, could have been handled differently in parenting when we were growing up was, I know for me, I think discipline got a little lax there at the end, kind of maybe a little bit too early. Because I remember one time I came home from school and I was talking, I think both of you, and I was like, man, fuck that, or something, and I cursed, and then you guys didn't do anything. And right at that moment, my thought was, oh, okay, this is cool. I can do this sort of thing. But I think at that point, Ben had been out of the house for a year already. And I think you guys are at the point where you're like, oh, fuck, these kids are almost out of here. Like,
I'm sorry. If we can go back, I would have picked you up and thrown you across the room into the wall.
I mean, I'm not asking to be like thrown out of a window or anything. But like, hey, maybe don't cuss at home would have been, more appropriate of a response instead of, nuclear warfare throwing me out the.
That's cold humor.
Well, I think to address that point, we got to that point and we went, it's a word. They're words. Do we give them a lot of weight? Do we give them, when you were little, those just were not appropriate to come out of your mouth. Some of you were easier to harness that and have that controlled. Others were a little bit harder and will make the Navy blush. But, it got to a point, you guys were old enough, you understood, and it's a word, and it depends, you're just like, do we make it a taboo bad thing and oh, let me clutch my pearls and gasp, or is it's just a conversation word, we just ignore it and move on, and that way it's just like not a big deal, it's just a word, it's how much credence and how much weight you give it. And that's kind of where we were at that point, because I mean, you guys heard us say stuff and it was like, at what point do you go, oh, that's an adult word and you're not an adult yet? So it was kind of waiting that out. That's the way I looked at it.
Fair enough.
Well, and I think you guys missed the conversations. We had conversations behind the scenes about what was and what was not appropriate the older you guys got. Will we allow this? Will we allow that? So there was things that we did and things that changed as you guys got older that even changed in between siblings because of maturity levels. Some things that we didn't allow Ben to do or get away with when he was, say, 16, we might have let slide with you, Josh, because your maturity level at 16 was a little more than what his was. Well, a lot. Oh, yeah. So he's not on here. He can't defend himself.
Yeah, I was about to say, I love that he can't defend himself right now.
So bully for him. He should have joined us. But there was those things. There was things that we let Felicity get away with, so to speak, that we may not have let the boys get away with. We just looked at the individual and went, we need to hone. Like, it wasn't a one size fits all.
And we tried to parent in a way that evolved and grew with you guys as you matured and grew. I mean, you guys have all made comments about my parents, your grandparents, and how they treat me to this day and treat you guys, and the way one of you went, how can you stand it? They still treat you like you're 12 and we're 2. What the heck? And it's not, yes, you're our kids. Our relationship with you guys now is totally different than what it was, say, when you were 2. But you're an adult now, and we have grown with you, and the relationship has changed, and it will continue to change as we all continue to grow. But you will always be our kids. We will always be your parents. We're never going to be your best friend and that kind of stuff, even though we know pretty much everything, and we're a very open family. But I mean, and we're still the parents. It's just different now that you're all adults. We relate to you as adults, or that is our goal. We hope we do. So, Bliss, comments on that?
Not really. I mean, the only thing is, I've said it before and I'll say it again. They're sentence enhancers, not swear words.
Okay.
What did you, looking back now, what do you guys think about how we treated your education in terms of, one of the things we had you guys do was you had to take a musical instrument. We had the fight of the classics, read the classics in the summer. Yeah. Those things. There's those things that we put emphasis and weight on because we wanted you guys to be rounded, I guess. Looking back on that, do you think that served you well or not?
It actually does in my current job because a lot of my clients have read those books and I can talk to them about it at length because I was forced to read them. No. And a lot of them seem surprised. You're like, oh, that's still on the reading material? And I was like, not on any school curriculum. But
yeah. I really enjoy it. Well, looking back, I appreciate it more now than I did then. The musical instrument one, like at first I was kind of like, oh, it's like, why? Like, this is kind of dumb. Like, I don't want to be in band.
You chose the drums.
I started on trumpet.
I had a reed instrument. I wasted so much money on frickin' reeds.
I appreciate the forcing us to take it, do music, play an instrument, to, like Mom said, like watch the History Channel instead of cartoons, whatever. Because the History Channel, then you actually got educational programs instead of like Ancient Aliens or whatever crap they have on now, which I think kind of kickstarted my love of nature documentaries, sort of thing. The only thing that I fought you guys on was the classic book thing. I remember trying to read Gulliver's Travels, and I was not having it
Oh, I love that book.
at all. I threw a fit. I just hated it. I've since read it, and it's good. But at the time, I was like, this is dumb. Like, I'm sitting inside, just reading a book written, however many years. Like, why? Why am I doing this? But in different, conversations or stuff with other people, like they never really had that. Like the only forced reading that they had to do with classics was through school, and through school you get like a bit of Shakespeare here and there, and like maybe of Mice and Men. So I definitely I appreciate having us do that when we're young. It was probably something that I'll implement for my kids. The only thing was like forcing us to take an instrument conflicted with the athletics class at the time. So it was like being band or being, football. That's kind of not that I was ever like super into being on the football team. But it was just another thing like, oh, hey, why can't you do this? Like, oh, I got band practice.
Well, and I think probably our mistake on that end was that didn't we didn't make it known that if you had come to us and said, "Hey, I want to play football this year," and pushed the issue, we probably would have compromised.
Yeah. And I think from our point of view, like we were probably a little too like scared or timid to bring it up.
Oh, I love
Like, oh
band
no,
practice.
like this is something that we like have to do, gotta do all this stuff. But also in the same breath, looking back, I wish we had kept that up a little bit more, especially through high school, because I know it was more of like going into middle school, and like beginning of high school. I remember is when that period for me was, at least.
For reading.
Yeah, the reading.
I mean, you discovered the original Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur. I can never do that one.
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Thank you.
Not that hard. Sound it out now.
Shut up. I mean, you guys discovered some good literature. Part of that was I wanted you to see the comparison between what you were reading now, what was popular when you guys were there, like the Harry Potter series and different stuff, how it was such a cookie cutter book. Because I read them with you. I wanted to see what you were reading. And it was so cookie cutter, it was so formalized that you knew what was going to happen each book. It was the same formula. And in the writing, the sentence structure was very short. I mean, they might as well have all been see Dick run, see Jane run type of thing. Because it was just beyond basic, I felt, for where I wanted you guys to be and where you should have been, and you were at that point. And that's part of the reason I wanted you to read the classics, because in that it created a whole story and a whole visual, if you let it mentally, to see what was happening in that scene in that book. And whereas the books you were reading, I was like, this is just like trash. It's not enhancing your learning or anything, or your imagination, or letting your mind take something and go with it and create that character in your mind.
Yeah, and since finding those Sherlock Holmes books, I think those are my favorite books now. I've downloaded a book app recently, and those were the first ones that I downloaded on there. So what's something that you wish that you would have seen us get into, or like had us or like has taught us growing up? So I know you've asked our opinion on it. Like, what do we wish that you guys had taught us? But from, I guess, your side of things now, like what's something that maybe you know how to do that we don't necessarily know how to do because you didn't teach us growing up?
For me, I wish I would have been better at cooking healthy when you were younger, and making sure that it was that it was better for you. It wasn't. I look back at it and I'm like, oh Lord, I fed you guys some crap.
The breakfast pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
wish
was
I would have
tasty
been
though.
I wish I would have been more diligent and better at feeding you better and healthier, helping you make those wise choices and having a more active lifestyle with you guys when you were younger. I've thought about that a lot and looked back and was like, oh, I should have done better. I mean, yeah, you guys know how to make a mean chocolate chip cookie, but those should have been a treat, not not
A bribe.
a bribe. And they were in your lunches, like they were staples in your lunch every day for school.
Oh,
It
you
was
handed me the mixer. Like, I started stress baking.
right. So, I mean, I wish I would have taught you guys nutrition wise better and activity wise better earlier. And, instead of teaching you to stress eat.
Or hide my eating habits, because I know if I go home, there'll be a pathetic salad with a measly amount of tuna and a gallon of water.
Yeah, I could have done a lot better.
I think probably one of the things that we should have spent more time teaching you guys was finances and how to not fall into the trap of this country in particular with consumerism and having to have and spend more than you earn every paycheck. This country's great, one, for having people, you earn $2,000 a month, for example, but you spend $2,200 because you put $200 on a credit card that you're never going to pay off. I think probably what we should have done was spend more time teaching you guys, if you earn $2,000 a month, the first thing you do is save $800 a month out of that and then live on the rest. Because by doing that, then you can get yourself out of the work 45-year trap and you can retire early. And I think also teaching you guys how to invest your money, and how to structure yourself for tax purposes so you're not paying as much tax and that kind of stuff. I think we could have done a better job at that, although I am trying to do that a lot more now, just on our family group me where I keep sending out videos and that kind of stuff to sort of spark your interest and help educate you a little bit. And I think also that plays into how we've changed our relationship, which is what your mother was saying earlier. As you guys have gotten older and more into adulthood and moved out on your own and done your own stuff, then the way we're changed in how we interact with you is now we are starting the more, hey, this is good, this is good, this is good. But we could have started a lot of that with you guys when you were a lot younger.
Yeah, and that's something that I really appreciate now is that financial advice, because I've started, trying to figure out, how to invest, how to save, that sort of thing, and you've been a big source of my information, for kind of how to get set up in life.
And it's really interesting because in the position I'm in now, I speak to a lot of late teen, early 20-year-olds, and even the ones that I would call the most responsible among them know nothing. Their parents have taught them nothing. They're still in the trap of go to college, get an education, find a decent job, and by the time you're 65, maybe you'll have enough to retire. And when I start talking to them, they just look at me like I am crazy. But I'm able to give them resources and I'm able to send them in directions where they can go and, do their research. And they come back and they're like, I never knew that was possible. So I've, and I've said a lot of the times, then what the hell does college teach you?
Certainly doesn't teach you anything about finance.
No. And even in their finance courses, they don't teach you about finance.
No, yeah, there's no like personal finance thing that's, mandatory or anything. And that's, I guess one of the classes, I guess school, high school or college would have taught would be a personal finance course.
Which pro sport is it that they now make their
NFL.
The NFL now takes their new recruits in and teaches them how to deal with their money because they've never had that much money before, a lot of them. And they were finding that, if they didn't make the cut for after a few years they were out, or even if they went on and had a great career, 5 years afterwards, they were broke because they
Right.
didn't know how to manage their money and were being taken advantage of or just spent it before they got it. So they were trying to teach them how to be responsible with it and how to stem that from happening so much in their industry. But it's a very important part of adulting, and it can be fun to see and play the stock market or to see your investments grow and have that goal of having your stuff paid off, your necessary bills and debt that you have, having that paid off in a set amount of time. And once you do that, realizing how much cash or money you have each week, each 2 weeks, each pay period, that you go, wow, okay, now what do I get to do with it? And it becomes a game almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do appreciate Dad's financial advice because in a couple years I'll have my car paid off, and by this time next year I'll have every credit card I have paid off, all the whopping 2 I have. And
then cut them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like by the time I'm 30, I want to have a piece of land and build a little hobbit home on it. I want to be able to have the money that's not tied up in debt to do that. And Joshua, I see you smirking, and yes, I do want to build a hobbit home.
I got nothing against it. One thing I guess that I wish you guys would have made more mandatory or part of the your Renaissance education with classic books and stuff would be foreign language.
Oh yeah.
We
Because I
tried.
know you have the option in high school to learn foreign language, but those Spanish classes or French classes, whatever you take, aren't good. And going through college, like a lot of my friend group, actually, like you guys know Andre, like his first language is Spanish, and hanging out with him and all of his friends, like you definitely feel like you're the outsider on there. You're like, oh, everybody's speaking Spanish or whatever, and you're like, oh, I only know English, sort of thing. And sorry to interrupt here, but I went on a spring break trip with Andre and his friends, and I was one of 3 people in the group that, like, I can speak a bit of Spanish, but like I'm not fluent in it. So it was. I think it would have been a better time if I had known how to speak Spanish.
We did try to teach you guys. We had Rosetta Stone. We had some other stuff. We weren't real disciplined at it. My biggest part of it is I took French in high school, so I was trying to redo that, and I was frustrated that it didn't understand me. I suppose Southern French, trying to speak French with a Southern American accent doesn't work well. So I found it frustrating. And yeah, you're right. We should have done that because as Americans, that's all, generally speaking, is one language. And when you look at the rest of the world, especially Europe, they speak anywhere minimum of 2 to 4 languages. And it's something they start from elementary or even before that. So, and it's harder when you're older to get brainwaves and synapses to hit right to make it work, but it can be done.
I try occasionally to relearn French, and it's a frustrating experience.
The funny thing is, we had some videos that Dad borrowed from somebody at his job at the time. And it was the Asian, I cannot remember what country it was.
Mandarin,
It was
Arabic, and
not,
Russian.
it was, no. This was a video series. It was a TV series. I think it was Chinese.
The Chinese series that was
Yeah.
really good that we all watched.
That was really good. And we watched it so much that I could be in the kitchen getting dinner ready, and I knew the gist of what they were saying because I understood from listening to it and reading the subtitles while we were watching it. I was like, okay, that's okay. I could keep up with what was happening, but we didn't keep that up. And it was, it was one of those things. It was kind of almost like an immersion because we were so engrossed in that storyline and the visual cinematography of that series, which I cannot remember the name of it to save my life, was amazing.
I'm gonna find that series again one day.
I was actually thinking about that the other day, and I was like, "What the hell is the name of it? I want to watch it again."
Well, I don't think we couldn't find it. They brought it over with them. Their family brought the DVDs over when they came to visit, and it's something we could never find. I do have a quick question for you guys.
Yep.
What did you think about us making you watch foreign films?
Oh, I loved it.
Oh, loved it. I think that kind of kickstarted my love of watching, films in different languages, sort of thing. Because like if we hadn't done that, like I know my partner, like she doesn't really watch a whole lot of foreign films. So every time I'm like, oh hey, like this is a really good movie, we should watch this. She always kind of has a bit of an aversion to it. There's some great cinema out there. Parasite, if you haven't seen it, watch Parasite, the Korean film that won Best Picture the other year.
No, I love it, and a lot of my friends up here, they don't like watching movies with subtitles because they want to watch it, not read it. And so I've kind of tapered off on that, but it's like it still pops up on my Netflix queue occasionally, and I'm like, oh yeah, really need to start doing that again.
So it takes the first couple times watching a movie, a foreign film, and reading subtitles, you feel like you miss some. But I feel like the more you do it, the quicker you get at it, and you can read and still see the scene at the same time and get so much out of it. I think a lot of the foreign movies are so different than what we're used to. It's like the classic books. It's something different and expands your mind. And I've looked at a lot of Spanish films, and when I say Spanish, I mean Spain Spanish. And there's an actress that does some, and she's amazing, and it's so versatile to see. Their storylines are different. It's the same thing. We watched a lot of British stuff growing up because we enjoyed it.
I think very quickly I'll add to that of course I'm not American.
Really?
And every day I say thank God. I think one of the things in raising you guys, we were like, we are not going to have your atypical American family, which doesn't travel outside the United States, only speaks English, doesn't know what's going on in the world, has a very narrow education and a very narrow view of everything, and wants everybody that they encounter to conform to their ways and means. And they don't appreciate the rest of the world. In saying that, I'm not against nationalism. Okay, so if you're a Trump fan, I'm not against you. All right, I understand where that side's coming from. At the same breath, I'm not a globalist. So if you're a Democrat or an independent globalist socialist, I'm not necessarily in your camp either. All right, but what I think what we have to do, regardless of what camp you're in, you can appreciate your nationality and you can appreciate your heritage of your nationality, One thing you should not do is throw away the history of a country, because that never leads to good. You are what you are, and you are where you are because of who you were and where you came from. And to throw that away, you lose way too much. And you also have to realize you are part of the world. There's almost, 10 billion people are on the globe,
7.5.
Yeah, okay, that's almost 10. It's closer to 10 than it is to 5.
It's exactly halfway.
No. There was that one person just born that actually moved the dial the other direction. So, yeah, as we gain on 10 billion people in the world, you need to learn to appreciate it. And what you said about foreign languages, that was sort of my downfall. I should have pushed harder on having you guys learn foreign languages, because, as you know, I speak a little bit of French, I speak some German, I speak Hungarian. So there's those kind of things. And that was my bad. So anyway, that's my little rant.
All right, Sis, do you have anything to add here at the end?
I think you guys were good. I never felt like I should be scared to come out to you guys, so A+ on that.
I mean, you're still our little girl. Nothing changed. I mean, I think any parent that doesn't accept their child for that is wrong. I mean, you raised your child to be their own person. The only question you should ask is, great, are you in a relationship? Great. Are we adding him to the Christmas list? Are you happy? Are you healthy in that relationship? I mean, it's the same that we did for the boys. You're still my baby girl.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there should be no reason why any child should be afraid to state who they are to their parents. That's ridiculous.
I mean, that's your safe space.
Yeah.
And your safe place to land and your support system. So we're always here for you, and whatever the announcement is that you feel anybody in the family needs to make, we're here to support you and love you and help you be the better person you want to be.
Yeah, I think, and I know we've got to wind up, but I think on that, and this is going to be very controversial for a lot of people, but I think any parent that would choose to disown a child because a child comes to them to express who they are and where they stand in the world based on, whatever, religion, sexual orientation, or whatever the case may be. If a parent chooses to disown a child for that, having given birth to the child and raised the child and loved the child up until that point, and then they want to cut that child off, is no better than a wild dog that kicks its pup out after it reaches a certain age because it can't be part of the pack anymore. And they're no better than a wild animal, and they probably need to take a long, hard look at themselves and figure out really what they stand for as a human.
I mean, yes, in a sense, you guys are our legacy, but that legacy needs to be that we helped you become the person you want to be, and that you are a healthy, functioning, contributing member of society that does what's right, and you're your own person, not a little mini us or a mini me that has the same thoughts I have, the same responses to stuff, because I have my own life to live. I can't live yours, and I can't live through you. If I don't like what I did at each of your ages, well, that's too bad. I should have done something different then, and I can't change that by forcing it through you guys to do it.
Right. I think that's a pretty good note to end on.
Yep.
So until next week, I've been Josh.
I'm Mom.
I'm Dad.
I'm Felicity.
Awesome. And thank you so much for listening to another episode of Faye Answered Questions. As always, if you want to reach out and get in touch with the show, have a question for us to answer on the podcast, the email is in the video description down below. and enjoyed the outro music. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.